Hi, I'm Jeffrey David Proud. I'm the author of the book Megasmart. That's a guide to parent-driven education. And that's what we'll be talking about today. In case you didn't notice, the world is changing. It's been changing for quite a while. But now we have what's called the Great Recession. And the Great Recession has brought a lot of things to head. It brought things to head like our education system, our financial system, our jobs, our economy, our politics. Everything that we live and drive for in our lives is changing. You know, we've got a new model, a new world, a new reality. You know, we've got globalization. We've got things like jobs that are the lower tier jobs are either disappearing, or they're going to immigrants that are coming in who are willing to work very, very inexpensively, or they're going to other countries where the cost of living is far lower and the wages are a lot cheaper than they are here. It's not really possible for us to keep up with this. So what we have to do is we have to cope with it. And I did that. And I did it in a way, in a little bit ago, a time ago, but it's a very interesting thing, and it applies now even greater than it did in the time when I did it, because now we have technology that was unheard of even as little as 10 years ago. My story is that I started out as a businessman. I worked for, since my first checking account I opened for Proud Industries in 1964. So next year, in 2014, that would be 50 years ago. All of those years I didn't spend in the same business track, so I can't count all of those years as being a businessman. I was an employee for several of those years, if not maybe as many as 10 of those years. So I have reasonably in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 years of good, solid business experience. Most of those years I spent on my own, and I'm used to making money on my own. All right, but my story really starts when I was 55 years old. I sold the last business we had. Well, it wasn't the last business, and I'll explain that to you. But it was the last major business I had, and that was an electronic engineering firm. We did electronic design for many corporations, very large corporations. We worked for 3M, we worked for Honeywell, we worked for big computer corporations, we worked for big cruise lines, we designed gambling setups for cruise ships. We did lots and lots of very, very big projects, and they were a lot of fun. Anyhow, we sold that business. It was 1999. I was 55 years old, and I was too young to retire. Although I thought it was cool to be retired for a few months, but then I got kind of bored. And so I decided, well, I better do something, so I went into teaching. Now, I'd always liked teaching, except it wasn't a very highly paid business pursuit like engineering was, so I didn't do it before. But then, after we had sold the business, we all had cash, I was retired, it was a lot easier at that point in time to do something that was like a payback for the blessings that were extended to me to make the money that I had in my life. Which was quite a bit of money. And I used a process called thinking big, but it all was derived from this concept of being what I call Megasmart. Megasmart is a book that I wrote that's really a PhD thesis that I wrote for college, upon which I was awarded a PhD from Belford University for doing this, and for the coursework that led up to it. All right, now, it's possible for you to adapt this model of learning and teaching to yourself and to your children. And right now, it's almost more important to do this than it's ever been, because the concepts of business are changing rapidly. But they're changing in one direction, and it's one direction that you or I can control. It's the idea of being an entrepreneurial person. They say that in the future, more jobs are going to be of an individual nature, so that you will be a contractor working for somebody rather than an employee. That's kind of the way I worked all my life, and that's probably the way the world is going to go in the future. All right, I consider it to be desirable, because in my world, or my thinking, the idea was to get paid by virtue of performance. Now, I always worked in a situation where I was paid on a commission basis. I was either a sales representative or a business owner, in which I got paid a percentage of whatever business we took in and did. All right, and that's the best way to get paid, because of the fact that if you earn more, you make more. It's not the game where the employer grants you a salary and pays you money, because in that game, the employer always has to make more money from your efforts than you cost him. If the world is a profit world, which it normally is, and that's the name of business. All right, now, you control that if you're an entrepreneur, and this is the secret to that. What happened to me is, when I was first had sold the business, we had a big pile of cash. We were all happy. I got retired. I was happy being retired for, 2 months, 3 months, and I got bored. So I decided, well, I'll be a teacher. All right, so I went back into teaching. Well, I didn't have a lot of teaching credentials, so they hired me as a teacher's aide. All right, and they put me in the special education department. So I got to teach 1 or 2 children, or 3 or 4 at most, and it would rotate around during the day. And I ended up teaching the kids that had the most difficulties learning. All right, but I had a real good relationship with them, because it was a small setting. Special ed, special kids, special teacher, smaller group. So that was cool. All right, well, I had kids that were hiding under tables. And I've got some good stories to tell you about that, but I'm going to wait a little bit about that. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of this. What I did is, the first thing I did is I said, okay, well, what we have to do first is we have to teach them some fundamental skill, all right? And I have to give them some confidence so that they believe in themselves, all right? So now I thought about this for a little while, and reading seemed to be the most lucrative subject for them, because all learning practically builds on reading. So I decided, well, we'll do that. And of course, there was a special ed teacher there that did the things that I wouldn't do, or not wouldn't do, or she just had a certain aspect of the special ed teaching that she covered in a day. And a lot of it dealt with the 3-letter words, the rat, cat, bat, hat kind of thing, where little children would learn the meaning of those words and how to pronounce those syllables and how to connect a word to what it meant. All right. Now, when I got there, these kids are having difficulty focusing. So what I did is I pulled out a product that I had invented for electronic use. Now, if you're familiar at all with electronics, there's normally in electronics, there's a processing unit of some sort, and it controls something or does something, and then it has some sort of readout that tells you that it's working. All right, well, in a lot of cases, that readout is in the form of numbers, like on a watch. Or if you had a boiler room, it could be a display box, an electronic box, with a hole cut in it, and a LCD, which is a liquid crystal display. that displays numbers. All right, well, over the hole that covers up the LCD, they were generally put a bezel. And a bezel is this. Now what I designed is a bezel that you could use for prototyping. So if prototyping engineers would build something, they'd use a common box to hold their electronics, and then they need something to cover up the hole that they cut in the box so they could read the display out. And that's where they would use one of these bezels that I had pre-made for them. Now, just to give you an idea, I designed 3 different sizes of these things, and I also designed them so they could opaque down the lenses, the periphery of the lenses, and they come in different colors, right, for displaying different lit type of characters. Anyhow, in the teaching world, I used them for a different purpose. I decided that if I use these, that I could cover words up on a book page, right, and confine the children's viewing area to what they were covering with this, or what was showing through the bezel. All right, that concentrated their thinking. It made them focus on this section of things. Right, and then what we did is we would put this over there, and they would read then what was within this box. That also acted as a training device so that they could focus on training their thinking so that they wouldn't be distracted. It tended to concentrate their effort. Okay, I did that, and I discovered it worked, right? It allowed them to focus, it allowed them to learn better. All right, then I went to a program that was a software program called Quick Read. And don't worry about writing this down, because later on I'll go over these things in greater detail. All right, but Quick Read is the same thing as this, except it's a software program, and the highlighting part of it is adjustable so that you could make it read 4 words if you wanted to.